Travis Wayne Goodsell, as it was 3 o'clock at one particular point in time. It's now 4 o'clock. I I began looking for fashion pics, and then I found an email that required my immediate attention, or I'm going to be booted out of the apartment if I don't come in and sign some papers. So I took care of that, and then had found an email comment from a person who was trying to still reconcile the reality of Jesus somehow. They know that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints isn't true, but they're on the fence. What is it, chain link or? From Jasmine's previous video comment that I read. But I had to again go over how to do research on historical situations, which can be done for current situations too, because I have to pay attention to all of the different news sources, because every one of them provides different information, and so if I were to just focus on one channel and one channel only, they would lead me down a path that they want me to go and are trying to incite me into their brainwashing. And so by paying attention to all of them, I'm able to figure out what the others are factually saying versus what opinions and purposeful manipulation of the wording to deceive me with. And with the war going on against Israel, it's crucial not to get suckered in by this, because now you have Blinken, who's an anti-Semite. It's just disgusting that our own government is now betraying Israel. And people are forgetting what caused all this and why Israel has to defend themselves. This isn't something that they can just go in, bomb a few buildings, and call it good. Their lives and existence is in jeopardy, and people are refusing to understand the historical context of Israel and the Jews in order to justify exterminating the Jews. So yeah, it's a very dangerous situation for the Jews right now. But I digress. And so it's important, even when doing church history, not just biblical history, that you stick to my suggestion of having a different file folder for persons, places, events, and dates, so that you can place each thing you come across in their particular file system. And so once you've got a good number going and you put something new in, you see the others that you've already put in there and you go, oh, I see a pattern. I see that sections 115 to 119 are all from 1838. And so then you go and you check the other files for those particular Doctrine and Covenants passages, sections, and you'll find anomalies. Well, wait a minute, section 115 goes against the Book of Mormon, or Joseph Smith, in his 1838 history, where his name of the church was actually, from the Joseph Smith papers, the Church of the Latter-day Saints, not the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. What's going on? Anomaly. 116. Adamon Diamond. That's the wrong name, first and foremost. And then there's some other issues with that as you connect other things for that. Like the way to perfection that I've been showing you. Adamon Diamond. That's an anomaly because of what you find out about Joseph Smith and what he talks about the latter days in Zion and such. And then 119, that's on tithing, but it's for priestcraft. Well, that goes directly against the Book of Mormon that condemns priestcraft. And so then 132 even, polygamy. Really? Joseph Smith turned to polygamy after the Book of Mormon condemns it 6 times. And the 1835 edition of the Doctrine and Covenants, section 101, was on monogamy, condemning polygamy. And Joseph Smith had excommunicated any and all who were found to have been committing polygamy. John C. Bennett, for example, excommunicated him for polygamy. And so there's anomalies, because section 132 says it's by Joseph in 1838, or actually 1843 in that particular case. And so then you find other stuff, and pretty soon you realize, oh, wow, Joseph is being framed. All those documents, sections of the Doctrine and Covenants, are forgeries. They don't belong to Joseph. They belong to somebody else. And the majority of those were put in Brigham Young's Doctrine and Covenants the final year before he died. And so when you start collecting the evidence, you put them in their different files, then you can analyze the data, identify anomalies, and use the evidence to run theory tests and have them tested for 3 separate confirmations to establish facts. So all my videos I don't go into that full detail research with you. You need to know and understand that that's the process that I've been using. And so when I tell you that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a fraud, that's what I mean. It's an established fact. And so thus no Jesus, an established fact. The Jewish scriptures talking about a character named Jesus is no different than any of the other characters with different names. They are all symbol, types, and shadows of Jesus. Real simple. But very complicated for a person who's been indoctrinated, brainwashed, or hypnotized, whatever word you understand, into whatever particular field. Not just religion. Because the various educational fields have their own version of indoctrination if they do not use sound Socratic method theory development and scientific processes and procedures. So for example, psychology, it's a complete and utter fraud. There is nothing sound about any of it. It's all based on fallacy. Everything that they teach and preach and practice are all fallacy arguments. There is not a single bit of sound argument in anything that they do. And thus, it's a very dangerous, threatening organization. And yet, it has dominance in our nation. And so people don't understand and are victims of their bullying threats, not understanding that that's exactly what they're doing. But having been raised up in America for these 53 years, my peers knew exactly how to use the fraudulent fallacy of psychology to bully other peers. And so, yeah, it's sad that the press and the government and religion all embrace psychology. And so all of the students who go into psychology are, just like a religious cult group, being indoctrinated into lies that will cause harm to other people and themselves. So, must use proper research for study. It is essential to your eternal salvation and your physical salvation here on earth. So, Mark Crispin has responded to Jasmine asked questions about Mormonism, LDS missionaries getting burned. I don't care for the English language, but I know how to manipulate it for the purpose of videos, because one word has multiple meanings. And so to include it with pictures and memes, lots of fun. And so, yeah, if you hadn't caught on, I'm doing a comment reply video rather than going back to the fashion. The things I do for you guys. And so he's saying, OMG, Travis, I was laughing my $$ off when you sing your theme song all by myself. Yep, it's my version of. There were some changes in the lyrics. And apparently he's a bedwetter and must be an arsonist, because he just about peed his pants. The song fits me perfectly. Yeah, thanks. And here we have Eternal Voyager. Super Sacred Secret Scripture Scandal. The 5 S's. LDS Church footnote cover up. And he's putting in the timestamp of what I say in the video at 1 hour and 7 minutes, and says, and that's the way the cookie crumbles. Pay that protection money to never get the fugly thing they call truth. And is that a chicken, or is that the sign of the devil? Or, like, that's the Hawaiian one, isn't it? This way? Spiritual witnessry is much more interesting in its dysfunction. LOL. Yep, he's been around for a long time. And we have Jasmine, but I only have 2 more of you left here, Jasmine. Should I do this? Oh, you're not asking a question on this one. Okay, so we'll cover this one. Super Sacred Secret Scripture Scandal. Hey, Travis. As for me personally, I love your videos you do that inform us about your accomplishments and achievements you have contributed. It's bad people won't take advantage of your knowledge. Since you are trying to help Mormons, makes me feel weird, because as of late, most of my questions are about Bible problems. Jasmine, are you not paying attention to all the attention I'm giving you? You're perfect. I've created a whole new playlist. I do videos specifically for you. You're doing great, and I'm taking advantage of it to try to help Mormons. And so I have no problems with your questions. And in fact, since you now have my email, if you don't want, or if you don't know if they would be for the YouTube audience, the Mormons, then email me. I can have personal discussions with you, and I see you're now in the Pearl of Great Price and have a list of questions from that. So if you're not going to send them to me on YouTube, send them to me on the email, and I can answer them there, and even use them for YouTube videos if necessary. But I can then send you picture links and document links, and we can have a back and forth discussion on that, if that would be easier for you. And then, where's that pink picture? Where's you in pink? Where is it? Well, the Pearl of Great Price, that's Mormon scripture. And I do Mormon scriptures. So anything you cover with the Bible or Mormon scriptures, yeah, I can use them as YouTube videos. That was the whole point and purpose of creating the Jasmine channel playlist. And Stanford Graham, exposing Danite's secret combination within current Church of Jesus Christ. And Stanford, why aren't you emailing me? Are you really that busy at work? You can email me too. Doing study of a meeting and participants in 1844 in New Bedford, Elder John Hardy was church leader there. He had learned of members teaching polygamy. I have not yet checked the book of the law for these names, which I want to verify if they are Danites. G.J. Adams, Samuel Brannan, A.E. Wright, Thomas Braidwood, William Miles, McAllister, Hicks, Gooch, Bickford. McAllister was found teaching and practicing heresies, polygamy. Witnesses that had previously spoken to Hardy about him now gave testimony in direct contradiction to their prior representations and tried their best to smear Hardy. If you've tied them to practicing polygamy, not accused of polygamy, but actually practicing polygamy, you got them. They're Danites. Automatic. Because there would have been no way in the world that anybody would be practicing polygamy in Joseph's church without a Danite educating them on the practice. If they came in through somebody else who was not a Danite, they would have thought that it was just a regular religion, as we're told by the missionaries, who were not Danites. And so they would have not known to be practicing polygamy, because the Book of Mormon condemns it 6 times. And Joseph Smith's 1835 edition of the Doctrine and Covenants condemns polygamy in the whole chapter in section 101 of monogamy. It's that simple. The Danites were the secret combination. They were committing all these crimes and sins and abominations and coups and seditious conspiracies in secret. So if you've tied these guys, and I recognize some Mormon names in there that came with Brigham or came to this valley, yeah, they're Danites. Real simple, real easy. And then a Jasmine, which I probably should wait for tomorrow if you do not communicate with me by this evening. Gotta have something for tomorrow. And Zornham, Utah City Council unanimously votes to expel homeless and poor. Stanford Graham. Thanks for the pattern tour. Question: does the Book of Mormon possess its own keystone incorporated into the general arching design and architecture? Okay. I need to explain this then, don't I? 9/11/1826. The Illuminati that had infiltrated the Scottish Rites had found out that William Morgan knew their secret plot to destroy America and had him wrongfully arrested to threaten him to stop the book and prevent him from publishing the book if he were to be convicted of not paying the little fine, because they had debtor's prison back then, and that would have prevented him from working on the book. He had his home in Batavia, New York, right there where the press was that fronted him the money. And so it wasn't an issue of not having paid his bill. This was a false allegation that had him locked up. Similar to today. All a cop has to do is hate you and bring you in on a fake charge and lock you up in the Salt Lake County Jail. And if you're unable to pay the bond price, they torture you until you confess, or you serve out the time for the misdemeanor offense, and it goes on your record as time served. And they've destroyed your life because you've lost your family, you've lost your job, you've lost your home, you've lost everything with just a simple minor infraction because of the hateful cop who violated the law, which is a common practice in the state of Utah. And so Joseph Smith Sr. was the master mason of the Canandaigua Lodge. He was helping William Morgan write the book, giving him a place to stay, to be hidden, so that nobody would find out about him. But they did. And so, as the master mason, he has duties and responsibilities to perform. He's got to protect his fellow York Rite Masonic brother. And so he helped him sneak out of the country with the assistance of David Miller of the Batavian Press. And that's where the incident occurred at the fort at the Niagara, Canada border, United States-Canada border, which was further north of where the explosion accident of the vehicle occurred on the Rainbow Bridge, Rainbow, something like that. And so the document that William Morgan had been working on needed to hide. The people know about William Morgan now. They're threatening his life. They're going to destroy his documents. And so they've got to hide them. And people did search his home looking for him. And with the anti-Mason movement, because of the reporter who scared the colonists about that incident, the colonists burned down almost all of the Freemasonic lodges, including the Canandaigua Lodge. And so therefore nobody could look for them at the lodge now. But we know that Joseph Smith Sr. preserved not only those manuscripts, but also the records of the membership at his lodge, because we know that he was the master mason there. And we therefore know, because you're putting people, places, events, and dates together, you find that Heber C. Kimball claims to have petitioned Joseph Smith Sr. to become a Royal Ark Mason. Says he was approved, but oh no, no documents because it was burned down. Oops. Gotcha. Heber C. Kimball lies. Why would he lie? Why would he not say Joseph Smith Sr.? And so I've done those videos. He is the enemy that was seeking to coup America. and thus joined the Church of Joseph Smith, which was the Church of Christ, 1832, with Brigham Young to coup it, overthrow it, destroy it, burn it to the ground, and use it to start their own religion. The Illuminati plan that has been patterned over and over and over again throughout the histories. And so, it's very clear that Joseph Smith Sr. knew of Sidney Rigdon, because that's who he gave the documents to. And it was necessary that Smith Sr. not be involved, because he was the Master Mason. He needs to keep distance from this project, because people are trying to murder whoever has those documents to destroy them as well. So that's why you hear about Junior talking about people searching, trying to find the gold plates. It was the original manuscript pages of William Morgan. And so he wasn't running around the forest with gold plates 200 pounds. See, Joseph Smith Jr. was now to be used as the front for the publication of the Book of Mormon when I got it finished. The first document that we have available for any of this to the church is section 3 of the Doctrine and Covenants. And it's about Martin Harris stealing the 116 pages. And so you need to understand who Martin Harris is. He was the money man. Joseph Smith Jr. knew him. So great. Junior is going to be the front man to take all the credit for the Book of Mormon, to try to distance it from 9/11/1826 in Canandaigua, New York. And so he approached his former boss, because he worked on his farm, dug the well, found a rock. He knew about a rock and a hat trick from his dad, from the New Israelites, which is a little kid's game. Joseph Smith is a kid. And so Martin Harris knew about the little kid's game of Joseph Smith Jr. And yes, that's why he was arrested in the 20th of March, 1826, for glass looking. He was looking at his rock and a hat. And it had to do with working for Josiah Stoll for the silver mine, trying to find silver, and they didn't find any. And so since he knew that Martin Harris had money to pay for it, because they can't go to the Batavian Press and ask for more money to work on the book, because people are trying to murder who's ever involved. And so it's very important that you make sure you got your documents all lined up, and that you realize that even though section 3 is 1828, that doesn't mean that Bruce R. McConkie can change the date of section 10 to 1828. Oops. Yeah, the Smiths made some errors that exposes them. And so, but Heber C. Kimball was able to figure it out before that. And so, yeah, these are all documents that were before they had their first publication. And it's Joseph Smith Sr. that's writing those, or dictating them to somebody who's writing them down, whether it's Junior or somebody else. That could be Oliver Cowdery, because he is obviously involved. There's a reason why all of a sudden he appears after the year of probation of no translator, and taking him to the Whitmers, again, to distance from previous scandals, so that their cover is not blown. And we know that Joseph Jr. was copying the original manuscript onto another paper to use that, not the original documents, so that Sidney Rigdon can have possession of the original documents. So when Martin Harris got there to Harmony, north of Pittsburgh, which is right between Sidney Rigdon and the Manchester farm, the road that connects them. And that's where the Hales were. Emma Hale. The Hale or Hales? Regardless. Because Elder Hales, or Hale, was the other name. And so, knowing the distances from the geography, which, yeah, that's part of places, and knowing that they don't have vehicles, they have horses and carriages. So you got to know the distance that a horse normally travels in a daytime, so that you don't assume certain facts that aren't actually the case back in those days. You can't pull an anachronism, is what it's called. And so Sidney Rigdon had acquired a library of books. He had an accident when he was a young boy, as his brother tells, in which he was no longer able to write his own sermons for his church. And as a result, this may apply to Jasmine's question, because she talks about the teachings of Sidney Rigdon with Parley P. Pratt. I don't know if I'm crossing over here. And I guess we are crossing over. Okay, I guess we're going to have to use... We don't have anything for you tomorrow, Jasmine. Ah! Help! Send me the pink picture, quick! And so, yeah, I'll read over hers now as we're going over it. She says, I am confused, but that's normal for me. In doing some Joseph Smith history and why he was hated on so much. On the church website, I was reading about Parley P. Pratt and came across this. Returning to Ohio, Parley was swept up by the religious teachings of Sidney Rigdon, a minister of the Campbellite movement, which sought to restore the practices of New Testament Christianity. And so the church won't make this connection on purpose. You're supposed to have your different files so that you can make the connection, because there's Alexander Campbell, Sidney Rigdon in the person's location. And then you see that they were in the same religion together. And then you see that Sidney Rigdon wanted to revise the whole Bible to harmonize it. Old Testament with the New Testament. Alexander Campbell said no. Only the New Testament. It was his religion, so Sidney had to go. And Sidney came eventually to Ohio and was doing his own thing at his religion, using his library to help him produce the books. And that's why when you see in Wikipedia the claim that a computer program had identified Sidney Rigdon as the major author, and that Mormon apologists were trying to complain and say that it means that Sidney Rigdon is the author of an American history document back in the Revolutionary War. God, they're so dumb. Yeah, he would have had that document. He would have quoted from that document. It doesn't mean he wrote it. It means that he had that in his library. And so likewise, we know Sidney Rigdon is the major author of the Book of Mormon. We know that the Mormonism Unveiled book by the investigator who came to the town where Solomon Spaulding lived and read to the townsfolk from his books. That Sidney Rigdon had a copy of one of his books that was not published. And so then you'd find out that Solomon Spaulding had gone to the Pittsburgh Press and given them his latest document, manuscript found, but did not have the money to pay for it. Because he could not pay for it, the press can't publish it. They need money to publish it, to make the book, and to begin selling. And so they held on to it until he would come back and pay the money. He never came back. He died. And so the press can't do anything with it. If no legal owner of the document, like say his children, come with the court orders and that he's our father and we have ownership of his manuscript. They didn't even know about it. They talk about going through his chest after he had died and finding another version that was set in the Roman period time instead of here in America. And so that's where they knew of the other book because of him reading it to the people as a bedtime story at the bars or brothels. Where a lot of sleeping goes on. And so the kids obviously knew about this. He read the stories to them too. And so, yeah, when they find out about the Book of Mormon, they're going, hey, wait a minute, Lamanites, Nephites coming to America from Israel, and yeah, they knew it was related to their father's work. But they're accusing Sidney Rigdon and, well, Joseph with the Book of Mormon of stealing the book. No, it's not the case. Print press can't do anything with it. They have to just throw it away or give it away. And so Sidney Rigdon has a library because he goes to the print press to see what books are coming out. And since they couldn't do anything with that manuscript, he was able to take it. It's not illegal, not a crime. He added it to his library. And so when Joseph Smith Sr. comes to him and says, hey, we need your help. Will you help us with this? He agrees, because he's the major author of the Book of Mormon. He agreed. And you can see that in section 3 and section 10, because they're talking about that book, Manuscript Found. Joseph Smith Sr. knows about that book, knows Sidney Rigdon. And so the computer analysis has shown that the manuscript found is the overarching template. And I'm not sure if this answers your question, Stanford, as to it being the keystone of the Book of Mormon. It's more of the framework. The keystone is the interpretation of the book, which would be the learning of the Jews. That would be the keystone of the Book of Mormon, which is the keystone of Mormonism. And so it's Jewish Kabbalah is the keystone that you're asking for. That is the general arching design and architecture, even though the actual publication arching design and architecture is Manuscript Found. And there are over 36 contemporary works contained in the Book of Mormon, the Late War being among the more popular among critics, other than the 1769 King James Version of the Bible, errors and all. This was because of the title of it, The Late War. Now, because this is the learning of the Jews, it's prophecy of the latter days, the days of late, the late days. And what's in the late days? War. What's at the end of the Book of Mormon? At the late end of the Book of Mormon, war. But everybody wants to hastily conclude, rather than doing the research all the way to the end. And so Sidney Rigdon needed to be paid, and he was. This is where Parley P. Pratt comes in. Parley P. Pratt was a member of his congregation in Ohio. And as Sidney Rigdon is secretly writing the book, using his library to help him out, and apparently he liked a female author. He used several of her books, according to the computer program that had found out about her works. And so after the book was finished, and you'll notice in the book there are some critics who recognize Sidney Rigdon's work near the end, as they had to wait a year. And so all of a sudden Moroni has more time. He's not been dead yet. He's not been murdered. So he's got more room on the plates, so he keeps rambling and throws in about the sacrament prayers there in Moroni. That's from Sidney Rigdon as a Baptist Campbellite. That's his religion there. And the 8 years old. Again, Sidney Rigdon. Because the Smiths were Congregationalists, as the New Israelites was by Nathaniel Wood, who was excommunicated by Congregationalists and formed his New Israelites to be more a Jewish Kabbalah, as the Cowdreys and the Smiths were actually Congregationalists. And in the Congregationalist religion, you have to be an adult, which means over 21. And you have to have a personal conviction to become a member of a Congregationalist church. And you express that to the congregation. And then the whole congregation must vote to approve you for membership. If you do not get that conversion, if you do not apply for membership and you don't get voted in, you're not a member. So Senior, for example, was never a member of the New Israelites. And it appears neither was the Cowdreys. And so anybody claiming that that's where polygamy got started is wrong. You can only practice polygamy if you are a member. And Smith and Cowdrey were not members. Thus they can't practice polygamy. And since 6 times in the Book of Mormon, and a good number of those were in the rewritten 116 pages by Joseph Smith Sr., it's very clear he wanted nothing to do with Nathaniel Wood's polygamy membership. But he was interested in Jewish Kabbalah because of the York Rites Freemasonry that he was involved with. There are some pattern similarities between the two, with the Holy Grail and the bloodline, and America as the New Jerusalem for the coming of the human Christ. And so once the book was finished, they needed to figure out how to get Sidney Rigdon in without exposing him and connecting him to 9/11/1826. to that original document. And so enter Parley P. Pratt, who Sidney Rigdon also used in the Book of Mormon. And so when Parley P. Pratt was in Palmyra, lo and behold, missionaries. One of the Smith brothers, I think it was Samuel, or whoever it was, happened to be there when Parley P. Pratt was there to say, hey, ever heard about the Book of Mormon? Read, ponder, pray. And so, yeah, we have the video from the church about Parley P. Pratt getting the Book of Mormon and staying up all night to read it. He loved it. So, yeah, he went back to his congregation of Sidney Rigdon's and said, hey, guys, look at this book I found. This is awesome. They all joined. The perfect cover. And that's why Sidney Rigdon was not a part of the church in the beginning. He joined in December of 1830. And what had happened to him once he joined? Was he a missionary? Nope. The revision of the whole Bible, both the Old and New Testaments, exactly as he wanted to do. But Alexander Campbell said no. And so Sidney Rigdon got paid. And he was able to now preach sermons on Sunday with the sacrament that he gives you the end of the Book of Mormon. Ta-da! Sidney Rigdon got paid for his service. And thus was the first counselor to Joseph Smith the whole time. Because he knew about the whole thing. He's one of them inside guys that knows the real truth about the Book of Mormon and played a big part in it. And so likewise Oliver Cowdery, second counselor. But Cowdery was the scribe for Sidney Rigdon and then had to babysit Joseph after losing 116 pages to Martin Harris, who was concerned about the Freemasonic content in the original 116 pages. And so he wanted his anti-Mason committee in Palmyra to take a look at it to see if there was anything there. Thus, a whole year was required for Joseph to be on timeout. And being kicked out by the Methodists from Harmony north of Pittsburgh, they can't live in Harmony anymore. He's a glass looker. They don't want his kind in their city. And so Emma had to go. They had just lost their son. That's why they went to the Methodist church, which was her church, family church. And they're kicking him out, kicking him to the curb when things are tough for them. As Martin Harris then sees that as an opportunity to steal the 116 pages and run back to Palmyra. And so Martin Harris doesn't get used until after the book is finally finished. And so Joseph is no longer in Harmony, north of Pittsburgh. So when he writes about it after the fact, they have it set up so that if Martin Harris does happen to read any of those documents, he'll go, oh yeah, it was in Harmony. I can affirm to that. But it wasn't Harmony. Smith Sr. is the one chastising Joseph. Why didn't you come to me and talk to me about this? What are you thinking? Go sit in your room. You're grounded for a year. And so there was another town in Pennsylvania. And I've done the bombshell video investigative reporting on this. And it's just awesome. because the website confirms it all. In Susquehanna River, there used to be a Harmony, Susquehanna River, Pennsylvania, at the same time as a Harmony north of Pittsburgh. And so when the Smiths moved to Palmyra from Vermont, it was no longer called Harmony, Susquehanna River, Pennsylvania. It was a different name. And it changed a couple of times. And this is because of the U.S. Mail Service. They can't deliver to the same name in the same state. It's confusing. Which one do we go to? And they're separated by the state of Pennsylvania. The one is at the one end, the other is at the other end. And this location is right below where Joseph Smith was arrested for glass looking, and where he eloped with Emma. And so it was the perfect location. Smith Sr. was thinking ahead. The guy is brilliant. And as you read his prophecies in the 116 revised pages, I mean, it's so brilliant, it brings me to tears. There's an awful human being who wrote a book about Lucy Mack, that she was the glue that held the family together, and that Joseph Smith Sr. was a drunken bum and a loser who couldn't hold a job. She didn't even try to do her research. But anyway, that's how Parley P. Pratt's involved with Sidney Rigdon, and that's why he went with Brigham Young, because he didn't know anything about what was going on. He didn't know Sidney Rigdon's the major author of the Book of Mormon. He didn't know about 9/11/1826 with Joseph Smith Sr. being the Master Mason with William Morgan. And so he's easily persuaded to go with Brigham Young, being fooled by the Danites when they threatened him. There are people who instantly cave when their lives and families are threatened, and then there are those who do not cave and lose everything. And so that's how Parley P. Pratt's involved. And so that's the structure of the Book of Mormon. And thus the keystone. It's Jewish Kabbalah is the keystone. But the design of the book was to use a book that wasn't published, manuscript found. Because if they used the late war as their overarching, people would have caught on. Hey, I learned this in grade school. Which they didn't really have grade school back then. It was just you went to school. That was the school textbook for whatever age you were going to the little schoolroom. But even still, people should have been able to recognize the contemporary works in it. But, it was designed for people to know how to interpret it. 1 Nephi chapter 1, verse 2. Learning of the Jews. They give you the key for the keystone. Or give you the keystone at the beginning. The key for the lock to decode the Book of Mormon. Keen to hear your views, which may be a spoiler as I have not completed my own study. And yet here I am asking. On the other hand, I can see each pattern story. Yeah, use the key the keystone of Jewish Kabbalah, the learning of the Jews. It's prophecy of the latter days. And so Exodus pattern. Look for the Exodus patterns. That'll be the quick and easiest starting point. Every time they talk about a character who's a man like Moses, who has an Exodus, who tries to warn the people, tries to free them, who is involved in other activities similar to Moses. And of course they directly talk about Moses, in the rewritten 116 pages by Joseph Smith Sr. Nephi constantly reminding them of Moses and the Exodus, and how the house of Israel did not want to listen to the Christ in the latter days. Right, Mormons? The pattern, teachings, and precepts are individually functioning as keystones to the arc of prophetic practice, inspiration, agronomy, astronomy, archaeology, cosmology, meteorology, epistemology, the sciences of physics, chemistry, biology, history, logic, math, science, forensic science, and on and on. It all fits under the grand umbrella you spoke of in relation to your own studies and mastery of anthropology. Yeah. But start simple and branch out. As you branch out, you can become more complicated and be confusing when you say, the Book of Mormon is in the learning of the Jews. Nobody understands you. It's too complicated. Go back to the basics. Your work on Paleo-Hebrew is fascinating. The Genesis 1:1 interpretation is beautiful. In my Hebrew studies, before finding you, I had been using the text by Nehemiah Leibowitz titled New Studies in Bereshit. The byline of the title is in the context of ancient modern Jewish Bible commentary. She was a professor of Bible at Tel Aviv University. The book was published by Hamed Press, Jerusalem. No year of publication. Your analysis and transformation of the Hebrew to Paleo-Hebrew was instructive in the meaning it opened up. I'm using your materials to study now. Oh, that's why you're not emailing me. Okay, fine. The book has been instructive. Each chapter is a study of only a few sentences from the text, using both. It's about time for church news. Using both Hebrew and English, Rambam is frequently cited for interpretation, as is the Mishnah, Sanhedrin, Talmud, and non-BYU scholars. Rashi, Ma'aral of Prague, Akidat Yitzhak, Abravanel, and many others. 624 pages. There is an earnestness to the Leibowitz. Is it available online for free? New Studies in Bereshit. Not seeing it. I'm only seeing Joseph Smith. There's the Apocalypse of Abraham. Why is that here? Google search. And link me. If there's a link to a PDF, always link me. Your instruction has been tectonic in effect. Thanks. Okay, we're done. So this is pretty much about the origin of the Book of Mormon and Parley P. Pratt and Sidney Rigdon's involvement. Okay. Alrighty. And oh my goodness, my comments are cleared. It's all clear. What do I do? I don't know what to do now with my time. Oh, right, women's fashion. So, church news. It's Friday. And I probably ended 30 minutes ago. Went home early for the weekend. They did it! Oh, we gotta do a new separate video. Gotta go.